behalf of everyone at WebNyai, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar on virtual courts, hearings, and work from home. While most of you are already aware about WebNyai, I believe this is an opportune moment to provide some further context. WebNyai's name comprises of two words, web, meaning cyberspace, and nyai, the Sanskrit word for rules, judgments, and justice. Our mission is to take justice to everyone's doorstep and increase the access of justice in India. We have two product offerings, commercial dispute resolution to resolve B2B, B2C, and C2C complaints, conflicts, and disputes. It is a one stop place for businesses looking to resolve civil or commercial disputes as well as complaints and grievances. We are the only ODR provider that uses document automation technology to generate legal pleadings and formal complaints in the dispute resolution process. We also work with experienced professionals that act as neutrals on disputes being resolved in the CDR platform. Our second offering is the Resolve Virtually platform. This is a plug and play technology system that can be used by anyone to resolve the existing and future disputes. For instance, arbitrations where arbitrators are appointed by the High Court or the Honorable Supreme Court of India under Section 11 of the Arbitration and Conciliation Act can be conducted online using our RV platform. Similarly, the platform can be used for mediations, conciliations, and other modes of dispute resolution. Both these platforms can be accessed in numerous Indian languages and have advanced features like virtual hearing rooms and private meeting rooms with video recording and transcription capability. We also have cloud storage to store data and documents, a global calendar to record all hearings and meeting dates, and Aadhaar automation, digital signature, etc. We also offer 24/7 IT support and a dedicated legal case manager to ensure a smooth hearing and meeting experience. For further details, we invite you to visit our website at www.webnyai.in or email us at admin@webnyai.in, both of which are at the chat screen, for a demo of our platform and further details. Without taking any further time, I would now like to welcome you all to this session of the webinar. We have with us Senior Advocate and former ASG, Dr. Pinky Anand, Senior Advocate and former Vice President of Supreme Court Bar, Ms. Priya Hingorani, and Ms. Madhuri Bakshi, an independent advocate, to walk us through their journey of virtual hearings, e-courts, and work from home. Over to you, Madhuri. How have you managed as an independent female lawyer in district courts during COVID times, and what were the major challenges faced by you? Madhuri, I request you to please unmute.
Thank you so much, Palak, for the warm welcome. I feel that the initial few months were challenging for both the bar and the bench. No one knew what exactly they were doing and what is ought to be done. And now we are after like 9 months of lockdown, and still the situation remains the same. And it is us who have somehow adapted ourselves to expect the unexpected. So I practice in the district courts of Faridabad and Gurgaon. And unlike Delhi, there is still no dedicated software for video conferencing. And in all the cases, judges are majorly resorting to WhatsApp video calling instead of using any structured software. Now, the problem with such informal platforms is that there is no option of screen sharing. There are no controls that are provided to the admin, which make it very unsuitable for these platforms to be a part of the court proceedings. And because of that, we are not able to maintain the court decorum. And I feel that nobody can be blamed for it, neither the judges, nor the court staff, nor the lawyers, because we were not prepared for it. Young lawyers like me who understand technology are easily able to adapt themselves. We can manage ourselves, But I really feel sorry for those lawyers who are not computer savvy, who were always dependent upon their stenographers or typists, or the ones who lack resources. And in that way, I feel that, a situation of haves and have nots has been created. And because of all these lapses, the courts do not have any other option except adjourning the matters, thereby creating a scenario of tariq pe tariq, which has always been a big hurdle for the judiciary. Having said that, there is always a silver lining to it. And in this regards, one of the benefits is that the commuting time has been now reduced to zero. So now you can sit in any corner of your office and you can attend the court proceedings. I remember before the COVID times, I used to travel for 2 to 3 hours on a daily basis to attend the hearings, which used to last for 2 to 3 minutes. So in that way, I will say that it has been a blessing in disguise. Also, I would like to quote an example of the Gujarat High Court, which has begun to stream its proceedings on its YouTube channel. Now, if such an approach is adopted by all the courts, including the district courts, then the level of transparency will be unimaginable. And I think that it would bring a revolution in the judicial reforms, and the possibilities are endless.
Thank you, Madhuri, for this personal experience. How has judiciary in district courts played a proactive role to impart doorstep delivery of justice?
The judiciary in the lower courts has taken steps to ensure that this pandemic doesn't become a hurdle in the process of imparting justice. Like the ideas of e-filing and virtual hearings they were good in theory, but they fell short in implementation. Like if we take an example of the virtual hearings, initially the directions and the practice was that if the opposite party doesn't show up, then there cannot be any adverse order, which I feel defeats the very purpose of having a hearing. The reason a litigant approaches the court is mainly to get orders which will be adverse for the opposite party, and their non-appearance gave them a chance to escape from the same. The evidence, the cross-examination was anyway not possible through video conferencing. So even if we're not able to secure the orders, then it makes me question the whole purpose of even having a hearing. So the answer to this question of yours, that how has judiciary tried to deliver doorstep delivery? How has the judiciary tried to deliver justice at the doorstep? Would be that it is actually the litigant who is going from door to door in search of justice. That is as per my experience. So, as we have with us two of the leading lawyers of our country, I would like to know that how from wondering whether is it for litigation to wondering why did we not have this before? How have you bridged the gap from physical to virtual courts? Pinky ma'am, please, if you can enlighten us on the same.
Interesting. Thanks, Madhuri. In fact, this is Madhuri, yes.
Yes.
Interesting. In fact, I found your exposition very interesting about the district courts and your ways out of it and about it. Indeed, it's encouraging to hear young colleagues give their views, because you tend to stay somewhat in a different time zone, or at least space zone, as far as litigation is concerned. But why did this not come around before? I think that's a basic mindset issue. It is something that we always struggle with. Status quo is something that prevails over time, and nobody is very keen to shift the status quo. It is a big challenge, and I think it is adversity sometimes which brings out the best situation. So when we talk about COVID in a negative light, COVID has taught us quite a way forward, and taught us that we can accept something which has come new by way of technological innovation, and something which is a new way of handling litigation in courts and surrounding, in fact, also ADR. It's not only courts, it is all the issues. So I think we have been for a time wanting issues to be addressed. Now, for example, you find the question of arrears, you find the question of number of judges to the litigants. For example, there is supposed to be about 20 judges to 10 lakhs, which is whereas the requirement is about 50 judges to 10 lakhs. And we are short. Today, with these kind of hearings, you are able to have a single judge in the sense of single bench rather, hear far more matters than when they're sitting in physical hearings. Now the transition, sorry, coming back to the transition over this period, I agree with you. You have a big leap ahead of us. The younger generation is the first generation. We are all second generations at the best. However, I must say I love challenges and I love to learn technology. So initial period of lockout, in fact, the first 3-4 months there was nobody there because you weren't allowing people to come in. So you actually learned to operate systems. And in fact, I must say that my dependence was on nobody. But when I did start my dependence post that first 3 months of period, now I find I'm back to dependence. As a matter of course, that's an interesting issue. But how do you adapt to it? Now that's a tough one. We are so used to being able to go to court and to be able to address in the very august kind of presence of and the hallowed halls of the Supreme Court and whatever the entire environment. Now it's a different space. It's a professional space. It is somewhere where you actually look up and revere. Sitting in office on a computer, sitting down without a gown, without a coat, each of these issues required to be handled mentally. But at the same time, I must say it wasn't so difficult. We could get around it. It didn't feel the same. It still doesn't feel the same. But definitely one has become used to the fact that this is the way it can be managed. This is the only possible way. And hats off to everybody for adapting to the system as much as possible. So one did adapt to it. And yes, it is possible to handle it, but I must say where there are complicated briefs, where there are voluminous briefs, there are problems, and there are a lot of hiccups. The procedural ones have always been hiccups in courts, by the way. It's nothing new. And the procedural hiccups in technology also is, for example, if you send any written submissions across and the court master doesn't access them or doesn't get them or doesn't forward them, you have this whole stage forward onto there. The sharing of screens is something again which is not very available right now. If you want to mention a matter, and everything is going to the registry, so you can't mention. I know there was, for example, there was some very urgent case you wanted to mention, and even though the AORI had a link, still mentioning was not permitted. Now these are not only technological issues; these are procedural issues also, which have to be tackled. And I do think that we do need to have a situation where people can access. See, the whole idea of technology is access to justice. So access to justice means access should be in all ways. So the glitches that are there do have to be worked out in particular, which we mentioned. And I think by now we've become fairly aware of them. This is possibly not the only way forward. This is hopefully a temporary phase. But I hope that we will come up with a hybrid system at the end of COVID-19, which will allow us both physical hearings and virtual hearings, which will help efficiency, which will help administration of justice, and which will help in all manners the entire process of access to justice.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Priya, ma'am, how have you taken this virtual battle to get an effective hearing in justice for your clients from a computer screen?
Well, it's not been easy, Madhuri, as you mentioned, as Pinky mentioned. It was, of course, very difficult in the earlier months to adjust mentally with a mindset that we had to not go to the courts. Being hardcore litigators, our first thought was to rush to the court whenever something was to be listed or something was to be argued. So first of all, I think each of us had to mentally prepare ourselves that we were to set up an office space in our homes or in our offices at residence or wherever our offices were. But I must say, I have a lot of thoughts which I'd like to share. Yes, of course. And I like to start by saying that, when I was the secretary of the Supreme Court Bar Association way back in 2003, with the NIC, with the official government NIC website, we started training program for lawyers and judges on the computers and handling of the computers. And believe me, it was an uphill task. Neither were the honorable judges interested in starting with this or learning, nor were the lawyers. But I must say the younger lawyers did come forward. So we did it for a year, but then I think after that, as the successive committees came, it just somehow slipped away, or people got savvy themselves. But yes, it has been very, very hard for a majority of the lawyers. and it's not been easy. I think the brunt has been borne by the lawyers across the country because a lot of the lawyers, young or not so young, do not have facilities either at their homes or do not have the office space where they have the stenos or the computers. So yes, it's been a very, very difficult period. I think we are the blessed lot of lawyers across the country who have had these facilities, who have some knowledge of it, and who are it's little bit dependent, but have managed fairly well. Initially, of course, as you all know, that the courts were also not working virtually, and we had no work on for the first 4 months of the lockdown. But I must compliment the judges for having taken up the training. I know for a fact that the Delhi High Court started its training of the staff, of the judges, of their readers, court masters right during the lockdown. As a result, they were very well equipped once it started. But surprisingly, the Supreme Court took its own time, and we still are struggling at the Supreme Court. So there are a lot of judges who are very happy to learn, but there are some who have said, let's wait for a while. So for lawyers, it's been a difficult time. It's been difficult time for the judges as well, I'm sure. But I think I'm very concerned about what's happened or what is happening with legal community or the legal fraternity. So it's not been easy, but I think we are coping.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Pinky ma'am, I would like to know if we can foresee a future where an entire trial, including evidences, can be recorded on video conferencing or a separate online hearing room with defined SOPs.
That's a tough one. Though I must tell you in all fairness that I personally handled the cross-examination of a witness years back from Calcutta High Court. Somebody was in US and we did manage to handle it. But that is a very futuristic thinking that you can manage for the reason. And there is a real problem with this. See, trials, some part of it can be. I don't doubt that. The hearings, for example, the miscellaneous hearings, the final hearings, all these procedures, even, for example, admission denials, possibly even until that stage you can. But the question of evidence. Now, evidence as such, Delhi High Court, in fact, recently held that Section 273 of CRPC itself doesn't say presence has to be presence with the, physically. So it can be online. So there's no technical bar as such of it being done. But practically, the way we have in India, I think it's a remote possibility. Witnesses' demeanor, witnesses' credibility, witnesses' gestures, witnesses being tutored. These are various aspects that do need to be covered. And from that perspective, possibly evidence itself to be recorded is something which is a little far cry at this point of time. I'm not saying it can't be done, it can be, but then the authenticity, see, everything in a trial depends upon the evidence. So if the evidence itself is critical to the trial and it is not credible, or it is not vouchsafed for that, or there is interference in that, or there is tutoring in that, obviously it will demolish that very case. So when we talk about access to justice, I think we have to start being very clear. But another room, as you said, possibly with some kind of SOPs, is something that we can think about and experiment with it at least. As I said, today's the world for experiment, and today's the world to take the step forward. So you have to try things at times. The problem comes out of not of the technology in this case alone. It is of the other problems that we have within the system that we can't resolve through technology. So I think here we have to be very, very careful and tread our way carefully. But some part of the trial for sure, it could be handled through video conferencing as much as any other part of litigation.
Totally agreed. Priya ma'am, what is your opinion on this contactless justice where efficiencies have increased due to reduced travel and virtual appearances in all courts from any part of the country?
Well, that's true for very few very particularly limited section of lawyers, Madhuri. I don't believe that this is the way forward totally. I think the physical courts must start as soon as possible. The country has opened up in the last few months, and I don't see any reason why the courts should also not open up with social distancing. I have had the opportunity of appearing before the district court in Delhi and the Delhi High Court. And I must say, the system put in place is very good and quite safe. So I think yes, the cases are increasing. This is a very difficult time. But at the same time, I think we need to understand that the lawyers are the worst hit in this country at the moment. The lawyers, those think of those lawyers who, those who go to the courts every day and make them income on a daily basis. They are completely shattered. Their families are shattered. So I think we really have, of course, we have to balance the whole situation between a contactless court, virtual hearings. But I think the need of the hour at the moment is to start the physical hearings with social distancing and safe procedures. On the earlier point, what you asked, Pinky, and I do want to mention something on that as well, on the trial part of it through video conferencing, I think it is very difficult. In a trial, the judge sees the actions, the behavior of the witness, the way the witness reacts to a question in the cross-examination, the way a question is asked. I think these eye contacts, these body language is so important for a judge to see at this stage of the trial. So those issues are not possible to be dealt through video conferencing. Yes, some matters may be, but by and large, I think trials through video conferencing is a very, very difficult situation. So that was one comment I did want to make. And see, yes, we have saved a lot of time in commuting and traveling, but at the same time, when on a daily basis, the kind of matters we are doing across the spectrum, whether it is a trial court or different courts per se, it is not easy. There are technical glitches. Apart from that, I think the patience of some of the judges is not there. They feel that this is the opportunity to adjourn matters. There are lawyers who are ready to argue matters, but the matters are not argued out. There are sometimes urgencies. The other disadvantage which I found through virtual hearing is that the courts are giving very long dates, particularly in the district courts. The dates are for 3 to 6 months, which actually disheartens the clients. So I think these are issues which we need to look at as well. That's what I feel.
Okay, ma'am. My question is again to you. In these challenging times, how can one adapt to virtual courts while addressing arguments and ensuring an effective hearing, and also convince the clients of the benefits of virtual hearings over physical appearances?
It's not been difficult where the courts have used, good platforms like WebEx and now Geo. Arguments have not been that difficult. It's been easy, and I am sure Pinky and I both have had the opportunity of doing a lot of matters and successfully arguing. In one particular matter, which was a domestic violence matter in the High Court, I think I argued for about 2 hours, and the opposite side argued for about 2.5 hours. So we were able to do it, and the judge was very patient virtually on while hearing the matter. But the clients somehow feel that their presence in court or their presence virtually does make a difference. And most of the clients do join virtually, not of course at the Supreme Court, but up to the High Court level, most of the clients are logged in. So I think they're also learning. Quite a few clients are not able to do it because they don't have the infrastructure. So they are not very satisfied. But I must say that the only problem which I feel which we have faced mostly at the Supreme Court is because we don't have the controls with us. That many a times we are not unmuted. Many a times, even halfway through our arguments, we have been muted. Many times we don't get the link. So I think somewhere, particularly at the Supreme Court, I feel much is required to be done. And I feel, and I'm sure, and I know that the Judges Committee has been working very, very hard in the last few months to put together, to sort out these technical glitches. But I feel a lot more needs to be done.
Very correctly said. Pinky ma'am, the Supreme Court did not stop for even a single day since the pandemic made its presence felt in March, mid of March. and the nation came to a standstill during the months of lockdown. Can we have a permanent virtual courts in post-COVID era to come as well?
That's what I was saying, Madhuri. Basically, I do feel that it has come time. It is time now for us to realize that we do need to have a better and efficient system so that you actually have not as many arrears of cases piling up in courts and you have more expeditious disposal that we need. So one of the ways forward, of course, is the appointment of more judges, as the Law Commission also recommends, and those issues, because we have obviously a huge population in this country. But another way to actually manage is, if we can, it's like Lok Adalats. Now, Lok Adalats have functioned very well in our country, and we've had really wide disposals as far as, say, for example, 2016 to 2018. You had several lakh cases being covered by Lok Adalats, and similar kind of platforms is what is being used. So, virtual courts definitely for systems that can adapt themselves easily to the same, so to the virtual courts itself. So, for example, you have, let's say, miscellaneous hearings. I'm not talking only about Supreme Court, now I'm talking across. In fact, one of the issues that came up on virtual courts, I must share with you, is that they should have started from the trial courts rather than going from top downwards. Now, this is something which was discussed at a recent conference also, which was held. These are some of the issues. But I'm saying definitely a hybrid where we can mark up some cases which will go to the virtual courts and have the others in physical courts. But you have to also weigh in what Priya said very rightly. In fact, the Supreme Court Bar Association, the Delhi High Court Bar Association has been espousing the causes of not only litigants but also lawyers. Because lawyers as professionals really sometimes do require physical hearing as much as the litigants do. So you have open access system. Now, open access to justice is something which is older than the Magna Carta itself almost, though of course the Magna Carta records it in 1215 and we have it incorporated in our constitution as much as in the CRPC and CPC provisions. So open access to justice, because for example, litigants are unable, the juniors are unable to be there, and just being logged in is not enough. The participation in the actual hearing is a part of the process. And believe me, people actually in this country feel very strongly about being part of the system, not only physically there or virtually there. It's not the presence which marks that. So as I said, hybrid systems where we can adapt and we can actually classify cases. Now we've done this kind of classification process in various manners, in various proceedings. So if you could classify within what kind of cases may go up or what kind of hearings. So definitely some kind of systems could be set up where either on specific days you have virtual courts or you have certain allocated virtual courts. Let me give you another example. The NGT, for example, the National Green Tribunal, in order to have efficiency and for some time now has been having virtual courts on certain specified days. So you actually have, I personally done a number of matters even there in the NGT where we've argued virtually. And in a way, in the sense, one is physical hearing, the other is virtual. And you actually share that virtually. So that's another mixture where you actually have the physical hearing, but the sharing across the state is by means of virtual platforms. So you could have various varieties, and this much we have all learned by now, whatever it is, that we need to adapt ourselves and we need to accustom ourselves to newer procedures, and definitely those that advance the cause of justice in whichever way.
Priya ma'am, please share your concluding thoughts on transforming justice system with e-revolution.
What can I say? Has been said about it anyway. See, the way my concern, I mean, ever since we've started working, I mean, before I do respond to that, I do want to mention one thing. You said that the Supreme Court has been working from day one. Yes, it has been working from day one. Very true. But you know, what has been my concern as an individual, as a person who's been a member of the Supreme Court bar since I started my profession, you know, the kind of cases which should have been taken up by the Supreme Court, the cases of people languishing in jails, those matters of their appeals where they need to be heard at the first instance, those kind of cases somehow have not reached the cause list and have not been taken up. And that's my worry and that's my concern, that you know, while we are the courts are working virtually and taking on miscellaneous matter and urgent matters, and some may argue that what is urgent and what is not urgent has been a big debate as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. Listing has been a big issue as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. And lots of issues have been raised by lawyers whose matters who they were urgent in nature were not listed. So, but I feel now, since even now, when you see the look at the cause list or you look at the way the Supreme Court courts are working at the moment, it's still a cause of worry because those matters which should have been taken up at the first instance are not being taken up. And for reasons best known to the judges, I have been in touch with some of the judges, and most of the judges are wanting to, start the work and hold the courts, but we still don't have all the benches sitting, which is worrying. The time has come, and in fact, Supreme Court is supposed to be showing the way forward. So when you talk of how this system is working and whether there is actually justice, I feel there is uh, it's not being done in the true sense. A lot needs to be done. A lot of sensitivity has to be shown in those matters where people are languishing in jails, for those people who have no access to justice, for those litigants who look up to the courts for justice. So those are the issues which come to my mind when we discuss all this.
Pinky ma'am, how would you advise young lawyers to be able to grow in pandemic times and be in sync with the digitalization of the court?
I think one of the best ways is what you are doing. So a webinar is forward these webinars, and even though I think at times there are certain jokes about these issues, but I think this is a big learning process. One of the essential things that we do have to learn is that we need to learn more, and we use this time not only to adapt to technology but also learn as much as we can and involve ourselves in activities which are legal as well as outside legal. I think it is. I have been able to enjoy learning about myself and spending some time with family and doing issues of health and other things. It's a very good time for lawyers to realize that law is a very possessing kind of profession, and you tend to get totally carried away with it without any regard for yourself or your other faculties. So I think again a good time to realize that. For the younger students, I think it is a very tough time. For the younger lawyers, not only students, sorry, because the charm of the profession is active involvement, and the adrenaline kind of flows when you're in court and when you're standing there and you're participating in it and everything else. But well, adversity, as I said, you have to learn how to adapt to it. So young lawyers, I think, are the most adjusting, and I do understand, and I've been talking to a lot of people and also my colleagues who work with me at times. So I do feel that people are being able to understand this is a temporary phase. Yes, the temporary phase has gone beyond and it's ad nauseum for the time being, but it will finish. And we will come back to normalcy in one way or the other. What we have to contend for the time being is that we keep our spirits up, we keep our involvement up, we keep our engagement up, we keep our knowledge up, we keep our experience up, and we are able to actually take in as much as we can so that we do not allow ourselves to be dispirited by anything that goes around. I think knowledge of law is the greatest thing. So whether it's writing, whether it is reading, whether it is webinars, whether it is other engagements, as I said, this is what I would highly recommend. And I think with technological development, there's also another thing. New fields of law have come up. And in normal course of advocacy, we don't find the time to actually address ourselves to those. So, let's say, for example, the insolvency code, I'm just giving an example, or even the developments in IT law, or the development in companies law. And there have been tremendous leaps and bounds. And the normal thing that a lawyer will do is when a case comes across, you will actually address yourself to a limited issue. So the larger issues, sometimes in the background, which is equally relevant and could be of great facility to introduce new resources in law, is something that we could actually take up at this point of time. You are showing it, for example, behind you are all law books. So I know a lot of lawyers who are picking up books and starting to read something which we had forgotten to do. I don't say for myself, I still read, but I do know that everybody today believes in reading limited. The extent that is required is all that is used. So to go beyond that need-based system to say knowledge for knowledge's sake is something that we can undertake, and if we keep ourselves alive with that, we'll be fine.
Thank you so much.
Madhuri, you are again muted. I'm so sorry. Can you unmute?
Oh, Yeah, thank you so much, Pinky ma'am, for your inspiring words. I would now hand it over to Palak.
So our proactive audience here has asked a few questions. I would like to begin with Priya ma'am. Ma'am, Amitabh Singh wants to know how can we take online dispute resolution and online courts to the rural India?
Well, I think that's very important and the need of the hour, but it's something which the court system has to set up their infrastructure. The state governments have to sanction the funds for setting up the computers and the broadband. So a lot of responsibilities on the different states and the high courts of those states to take forward and set up the infrastructure first before we have these kind of proceedings taking place. The other thing which is very important is training. Uh, Unfortunately, in India, we don't have the concept of continuous training through the bar councils. It's individually either we do it or groups who do training or the bar associations to an extent do training. So in India, I think particularly there has to be a system in place, a statutory system in place where you can have training for the lawyers, for the judicial officers, for the staff. Of course, the judicial officers do get their training at the judicial academies, but we as lawyers do not have anything in place. This is actually the responsibility of the bar councils, and we hope the bar councils, now seeing what has happened in this pandemic, do put some system in place for training so that. And let me tell you, online dispute resolution is a very, very specialized branch which needs not only training, needs a lot of rules and to be put in place to maintain the confidentiality, to keep in mind the misuse, the cyber misuse. So there are a lot of factors to it. So I think it's important that a well-structured system is in place to take this forward. And I'm sure it's going to happen because since we've started virtual courts, these things will follow.
Thank you, ma'am. Talking about training and the duty of universities also to train students, I would like to move to Pinky ma'am now. Arya Jain wants to know the COVID era exposed lack of digital infrastructure. So, where India can improve and eliminate these nuances in our new life. So basically, talking about digital infrastructure here, how codes have to develop it from where they have to
First,
take it from where we are now.
you're right. That's the first thing. The question is actually whichever manner it's been put in, but definitely addresses the most crucial issue because infrastructure, lack of infrastructure, is one of the first major hurdles in this connectivity issue and addressing it for virtual course for the entire, let's say, the country in one manner or the other. Now, you have about 27% of rural India only which is connected to the internet and you have almost 72% of the country which is not connected to the internet as an overall feature. First, you have non-connectivity. Then you have the question of wider availability or the broadband width that is required for the net to function. Then you have availability of resources to the particular people who are able to or should be able to utilize the system which is there. So then you have what Priya talked about, for example, you can't have WhatsApp ultimately for any kind of system which doesn't allow sharing information or other modes of being able to either mute or unmute yourself. I'll tell you what a couple of instances which happened in Supreme Court in the very early part of this lockdown. In fact, again, when there were a number of people, and in Supreme Court, sometimes in these PILs, there are multiple number of lawyers and, of course, at some point litigants, but today litigants are not relevant. And because of number of people, the system couldn't take it, so therefore you were muted. Couple of times he argued on telephones to the court, in fact, saying we need to address ourselves. So there should be no anxiety. In fact, not only in virtual courts, even in physical courts, there has to be a regulation. One thing which has come up, and I think is very important, is we do have to learn to optimize our time as lawyers. I think somewhere down the line, even that is something which we need to contend with. How do you actually ensure that a hearing is regulated in terms of time? The length doesn't give it access to open justice or to justice. We must be able to confine ourselves because the more we confine ourselves, the more we can do in terms of cases or number of cases and disposal, and that will be better for the whole country. So then again, for example, issues of registry deciding which matters can be taken up. These are contentions that can be heard. E-filing. There are times when e-filing is done and at the same time hard copies are called for. Now, these are the typical situations. As I said, the mindset is one of the very important parts. Courts have been doing their parts, but the judges' committees have actually laid down. So, I mean, I was looking at the other day at the Supreme Court circulars, and my God, I was astounded at the number of circulars that came during the COVID-19 period just to address the administrative issues. There are a number of administrative issues, but once the goals are clear, if we have to do something in a particular fashion, then we do have to put the systems into place, and we have to put the most efficient systems into place. It's been very decent in some parts, not as available as in the other parts. So that is where, again, it said that, law in any case is for the richer, the richest, the people who have more money, because it's not only systems, it is the lawyers' fees, it is being able to access. There are these which you can't ever be specified it is for a must be.
That's beautifully put, ma'am. And as you mentioned, yes, the mindset is a bigger barrier than the digital divide here, but we cannot ignore the fact that there is a digital divide that we have to gap. And coming to Priya, ma'am, what are your thoughts on the newly constituted digital NI courts in India? We also have online dispute resolution, online mediations that have been taken up by Samadhan. So, what is your take on this digital NI court in Delhi?
Uh, well, I think it's a step forward, but it's going to take time for everybody to get used to it. As I mentioned, the concept of training for the judges is very much there, and they do get trained at some forum or the other. But for litigants and the lawyers to get actually accustomed to and to be able to work effectively in these courts is going to take a bit of time. But though I know a lot of lawyers have kind of adjusted and they are quite savvy with it. The As far as mediation is concerned, I think it's a welcome step because online mediation has now started, whether it is the district courts or the high courts. Even now, the Supreme Court Mediation Center has started online mediations. But there are a lot of issues which are coming up during the mediation process, because as you all know, that you have to have separate rooms, as WebNyay has, and they have been offering to a lot of people that you have, their whole concept is where you have separate rooms, you can put them in separate rooms, you can have one mediation sittings, or you can have them together. So those for the mediation thing across the country, it has made it much easier for the parties who are in mediation to participate virtually in the mediation process. But at the same time, while we have also seen that a lot of issues regarding to confidentiality, signing of the documents, accepting the MOUs are there. Most of the courts are of the view that mediation centers are of the view that you have to physically come and sign the mediation settlement, which becomes a challenge. The whole purpose of gets defeated if you are doing a virtual mediation process, and if it comes through. The question of signing of the mediation MOU comes up. So they're trying to resolve that, how it would be done. The other issue of confidentiality has also been taken up at various forums, and now there is a set of guidelines which have been put together. Training of mediators as to how mediation should be done on virtual platforms is another issue, and which has started, I know for a fact, in Delhi, Chandigarh, and Bombay. It has been set in place, and training of the mediators is going on. But not in the other parts of the country. So it's going to take some time. So yes, there are the good parts of it and the slow parts of it, and I'm sure we'll work through it.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Gauri, for the question. I amalgamated your question on NI courts with mine for mediation, taking some liberty here. And now I have the final question from the audience here to Pinky ma'am from Abdul Rahman. At this time, when we are talking about, I'm so sorry. I'll repeat. At this time, when we are talking about virtual court hearing, should the courts allow general public to attend hearings to know more about law and courts? Like sunlight is the best disinfectant, as the Supreme Court had also put. So, Pinky ma'am, final question.
It's a tough one, Palak. I mean, the question is you are battling against the odds for keeping alive the system within its, it's 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 actually bursting at the seams. As I said, even for example, for some hearings. But open access is something I think which is a valued and cherished principle of the Constitution, and even Supreme Court in various judgments by now has dealt with issues of live streaming, for example. So talk about access. But I do understand at this point of time that it may not be something which is very practical. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, but you do have live law and you do have bar and bench and you do have Palak to tell the public what is going on. So there's one part is the litigants who would like to be there. The other is the public, which is watching the proceedings. So watching today is something which has become access by other means also. So that is not necessarily an impediment. The litigants, of course, is the toughest one because I do think that their involvement in proceedings, as I mentioned earlier, is something which is an imperative. Public by other means possibly for the time being, because you don't want the systems to collapse. You do want the systems to function. And as adversity brings out adverse circumstances, and you do confine your rights, call it, the duties become even more relevant than the rights. So I think at this point of time, let us move with the system as best as we can within the existing situation and improve it rather than expanding the horizons at this point of time.
Thank you, ma'am. And I also have a question by Rutvik here, and I'm sorry I'm taking a bit long, but it's an interesting one. He wants to ask how have courts evolved for protection of IPR during COVID-19? He is giving a comparison in physical and virtual hearings where we can show two products to the judge and ask for the injunction, whereas it is not possible virtually. So Ritvik wants to know how have courts evolved for protection of IPR during COVID-19?
I know, Rutvik, I remember the times when I was in court, and particularly during the IPR proceedings in High Court, and the products used to be shown, and quite often the products used to be distributed amongst the sitting lawyers in the courtroom. But that's on the lighter side of life. I do think share screen is something which, if can be efficiently worked, and you could actually ensure showing of the product. I know the charm is not the same as showing quality versus quality, or some such similar Kellogg versus some other part of that. So it's not as fascinating, but definitely a share screen can work for the same purpose. We just have to make those easily available, as Priya pointed out in some of the modes. WhatsApp, for example, you just don't have share screen. So at least the minimum we can do is that whatever the systems provide as of now should be used efficiently. We should categorize. We should have the best possible systems for each of the courts, if possible, the same system for all the courts. But if not that, then at least depending on the requirement to have them across board. And I know, for example, in a lot of the webinars or other functions that we are doing, we are using share screen quite efficiently. In our conferences, we are using share screen very efficiently. And by colleagues and juniors, and they are not there for any physical conferences, which are not as many as they should be, then actually use the share screen to put across, or even systems where you underline, where you actually demarcate, where you manifest. So each of these things do come across. So Rutvik, for the time being, possibly, I don't think the IPR conditions will be any different from others. Yes, the requirements are somewhat different, but we will have to mobilize our internet and the facilities with the digital world to actually provide for that.
Priya ma'am, I would also like to know your views on this point of injunction, IPR, and getting an
Uh,
injunction on virtual
well,
hearing.
while I partially agree with Pinky on this, that yes, share screening is one way of doing it, and it has been done in the last few months, but still, a lot depends on the a judge to a judge. There are some judges who are able to see the finer points of it in on the screen sharing. There are some who find it difficult. So I think it depends on the court as well, or also it depends on the councils who are doing the matter. I feel it's more important that these kind of matters are taken up physically when you have the option of having alternate physical courts. These kind of matters where injunctions on IPR issues are concerned, they should be taken up primarily during physical hearings rather than through the virtual hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. And can I have Madhuri on screen, please? Yes, so thank you all our three speakers for the wonderful session. Over to you, Madhuri. Let's have the vote of thanks.
Yeah. Now I would like to invite Mr. Puneet Jindal, who is a designated senior advocate. He has almost 35 years of active litigation experience in the Supreme Court of India and in the High Courts at Chandigarh, Delhi, Mumbai, and Shimla. He also appears before various tribunals and statutory authorities. He has keen interest in arbitration, mediation, and online dispute resolution. He is a senior advisor and mentor to the WebNyai team. It is a pleasure to have him here with us today to be delivering a vote of thanks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhuri. Well, on behalf of WebNyai, I would like to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. A very special thanks to our distinguished speaker, Madam Pinky Anand, former Assistant Solicitor General. I had an opportunity to assist her also. We were associated in one or two matters. And a special thanks to Priya ma'am, both my colleagues in the Senior Bar Association. And of course, Palak, I would like to thank you for your contribution. Well, as at least I have learned a lot from this session, and hope that others also, the other speakers also, and the participants must have gained a lot in the fruitful discussion which occurred today. Well, as far as online dispute resolution is concerned, as the very topic of today is about virtual courts and this new work from home culture which we have developed with COVID-19. Well, if we recall a couple of years back, we used to call persons who used to have this they work on internet, we call them netizens. Now I believe that almost everybody is a netizen with the advent of these smartphones and penetration of internet. Of course, it is still the long road is there, but we have traveled quite a lot, and therefore now we have stopped calling these people who use net as netizens, because it's hardly each and everyone is now using internet as a part of their common day-to-day functioning. So all of us in a way tend to be netizens, and once everything is happening on the net, then why not dispute resolution? So this is a new thing which has come up, and it has got it is a starting well made, and this beginning is this system of dispute resolution, to my mind, will go a long way in developing our society in a manner where we'll not only have the courts, virtual courts, but also we have a detailed online dispute resolution mechanism, alternative dispute resolution, as well as the regular dispute resolution mechanism. Now, on behalf of WebNyai, I would inform that WebNyai is a one platform in this regard, and we are holding regular webinars on this. This is the fourth webinar which we have held and organized, and we have planned more such illuminating webinars in coming weeks. And I hope you people will take some time out to attend these our future webinars and stay connected with us. We have also uploaded recordings of our webinars on YouTube. So if anyone has missed, so he may see it there also. A final thing which I want to say is that on this WebNyai platform, we have got a list of alternate dispute resolution practitioners. So we look forward to receiving your registrations. Those who have already registered, they are there, but those who intend to join, they are welcome. The link is in the chat box. And once a person is panel with us, we will appoint that person to act as arbitrator and mediator as and when such disputes, according to their length of practice or their interests or their businesses or their practices they are arose, as and when they will arose, they will be appointed. And about fee, etc., that those logistics will be provided after registration. So we look forward to you giving you a demo of our platform. So those who would like to see that platform, see the demonstration, they may reach us on the admin@webnai.in, and we can schedule a demo over the video call, that again a virtual manner. So in just couple of minutes. So these things, and in the last thing, and above all, as Madam Pinky Anand very rightly said, that we must keep our spirits up in this COVID-19, with the long spell of courts, the physical courts having been closed, but virtual courts always being open, even in the summer vacations. But that's what we say, that keep the spirits up. Thank you very much. Thank you, all the speakers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Puneet sir, and thank you our distinguished ladies today. We couldn't have had such a session without your esteemed presence, and especially not being able to physically see anyone in court. This is a great platform to catch up and get the good vibes and get the knowledge that you have imparted us today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Puneet.